Something's out there. Something that forced its way into our world.
I have seen the dark shadows moving in the woods, and I have no doubt that whatever I have resurrected through this book is sure to come calling for me.
When this movie was originally announced back in October of 2019 and started making headlines, this movie had the biggest hype for it, but the pandemic kind of ruined a lot of things. But thankfully, the pandemic did not kill this movie at all. Many fans, including myself, wondered if this sequel was going to be any good or would it just be a bad requel. Was Evil Dead Rise going to be a direct sequel in the franchise to the main continuity, or potentially another requel such as the 2013 installment? Evil Dead Rise isn't just a direct sequel, it's one of the few films in the franchise.
What now?
In the franchise.
Go ahead, you got it.
In the franchise to try and connect nearly everything with the subtle, small hints. Like I said, for those of you that remember, or for those of you that have seen my Quickie video on this movie, it is a good, fun sequel that is just nothing but fresh air and is just so gory fun. Today on the channel, that guy Frankie, yours truly, your favorite S-Smart employee, your friendly neighborhood S-Smart employee, will discuss the film thoroughly and try to piece every little detail possible and try to make sense of what we can, since, let's face it, the Evil Dead lore is kind of, no, it's not really, it's really all over the place and it's a little confusing right now, so let's try to make light of everything, especially now that there are 3 books in the continuity. Is this some multiverse level scale, or is this just something being broken off in the timeline? I'm your wannabe chosen one, being tested to the metal of man, that guy Frankie, yours truly, and now let's slash our way into this video.
Oh, finally!
Like I stated in my Quickie for those that watched, this film's premise is a simple one, very similar to the original film that Raimi and the crew made, but tries to expand on its own lore, try to give much new life to the Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. You see, Lee Cronin's take on the franchise is a perfect balance of both the B-movie horror schlock with comedy that feels close to 1987's Evil Dead 2, with a touch of the original plus the remake. Rise's story is centered around 2 sisters, Beth and Ellie. We get to briefly see and hear about their paths in life, how separated they became and estranged once they stopped communicating with one another. When Beth comes back and shows up at their doorstep, she tries to reconnect with her sister and family, but it leads to both siblings having a fallout due to the poor communication between the both of them. Beth comes to find out that Ellie's husband has now left her and the kids behind with no help or support. Yet Ellie and her kids find ways to move on, cope, and just try to be positive about the shitty situation. Ellie, the matriarch of the family, is a strong character that, although we don't get to find too much about her, presence on screen, thanks to Alyssa Sutherland, just grabs the audience's eyes with her love and compassion. You feel for this character as she shows herself as a loving mom, trying to protect her family. Now, for Beth, or as Ellie calls her, the groupie of the two, is a technician that tours with bands all over the world. She is gifted and smart in her field that she can repair certain equipment as long as she has the tools for the gig, but in order to be the best, there are sacrifices that she had to make. Sacrifices such as not being in communication or not talking to her family, as well as something that I didn't really expect during the beginning of this film. During one of her tours, Beth has to go to the restroom, and it's here where we find out that Beth is currently pregnant. Freaking out, being scared, and not knowing what to do, she turns and calls to the best person that she knows that she can get the best advice from. her loving and caring sister. When she does go to Ellie's apartment and try to talk to her sister, we also come to find out that this isn't exactly the first time a pregnancy or pregnancy scare has happened, and it's hinted that Beth may have aborted in the past as she didn't feel ready to be a mother just yet. Now, however, she wants to try and make the right decision, whatever that may be to her, as we get to see more of a caring side from Aunt Beth, or as the Deadites call her, Bethy Boo. While Bethy Boo is trying to be the super fun and awesome aunt that everyone wants to have, she does try her best to not just spoil the youngest of the three, being Cassie, but build a relationship on trust with her own nieces, especially by trying to communicate with the likes of Bridget and Danny. She wants to be for both her nephews and nieces because they need all the support they can get, especially after their shitty dad had given them the worst card out there. With the apartment in LA being the main setting of this film, it is heartbreaking to find out that their home will eventually be gone as it's now condemned, giving them only a month to find another place to settle down in, but they find ways to stay positive. The family dynamic oozes throughout the screen, and you can see the love they have for one another. The cast and characters do their best to make the family feel important in the film and for audiences to try and connect to, if not at least care for, to give this movie something, to add more weight, to make it feel special and not make them feel as one-dimensional characters, instead three-dimensional and have weight to them. Without a shadow of a doubt, Beth and Ellie are definitely this movie's standout characters, and not just because they're the best scream queens out right now. I'm sorry, Jenna Ortega, I'm sorry, Melissa Barrera, but Liza Sutherland and Lily Sullivan are definitely this year's #1 contenders for best scream queens, right up until we get the Rocka Rocka movie. Talk to me. Yeah, I just said it right then and there. But going back to what I was saying earlier, they're the best scream queens out right now, especially due to the hell and back that their characters go through on this painful, emotional, soul-sucking, soul-draining journey. With Ellie being the evil's main target in this film, the first to get possessed and become a vessel for this new take in the franchise, it's painful to witness, as you can still see parts of her human self right before her soul is fully gone, with her last words to Beth being,
"Don't let it take my babies."
And it's here where Beth has to nut up or shut up, as I say, because they are coming to feast on their souls. They will be dead by dawn if they don't stick together. Thankfully, however, this movie does have a bittersweet ending to it. Spoilers, as I forgot to say in my last video, but spoilers ahead for those who have still yet to watch this movie. Through Beth's eyes, we see her struggle to keep her family alive as one by one, they all fall down. It's gut-wrenching for her as she feels as if she failed her sister, as now the evil dead have taken the innocent, making her feel like a failure, and because of this it eats at her emotions, causing her to break. Beth tries time and time again to keep the family in check, keep them together as one, as they're stronger like that, but these Deadites aren't all idiots. They try to get groups to divide so they can conquer, as we've seen in the past with Sam Raimi's as well as Fede's remake and the show. Deadites are horrible abominations, and here they're more than meet the eye with the amount of times they play possum and how they toy with their victims.
What's happening to me, sweetheart? I don't know, Mom. I'm free now.
Beth has to come to the dark, insufferable realization that most of her family is gone, taken by the evil, but she has to protect Cassie, the lone survivor of her siblings, protect her from her now Deadite family that tortures not just the characters, but the audience as well, as it's terrible seeing characters like Beth and Cassie go through this hellish journey. This, however, helps Beth's character grow in an immense way, portraying her just as strong as her sister Ellie for doing her best to keep the ship afloat, but now we know that Bethy Boo is definitely indeed ready to be a mother. The main themes that I was able to pick up upon my first and second viewing around this film, even though it is an Evil Dead B horror film, there is a strong, impactful message in it. The fears that Beth has of being a mother and going through the stages of motherhood slowly go out the window more and more throughout the film as it progresses her character's journey of hell and back. I loved the storytelling and character building we got to see in this film, but I still felt like some aspects were missing from the story. We don't get to necessarily see enough of the characters being fully fleshed out like we want to, and granted, the actors and the writing save the movie from just being like the original Evil Dead story, and don't get me wrong, while I love the first film, it is kind of just forgettable at best, unless you're a hardcore fan, if I'm being truly honest. I would have wanted to get more scenes between the family, more moments between Ellie and Beth before Ellie became a Deadite, like with Cheryl and Ash, Mia and David's dynamic, or even just scenes between the kids and Auntie Beth. From what many fans and I are speculating with Cronin going out and about talking of possible sequels, it is safe to say we will get more of Beth, or if we don't, I at least hope their next take or iteration gives enough screen time to certain characters' relationships with one another. Don't get me wrong, after watching this movie multiple times, I still enjoy Evil Dead Rise and have to say it's definitely one of my favorite additions in the franchise, but they just need to add just a little more runtime in their next installments. The Evil Dead continuity is all over the place. It's more than a bit of a mess for many reasons. While the television show Ash vs. Evil Dead does its best to tie its previous films, even with the 1987 requel, the show tried its best to make sense of many things. The main timeline and aspect of things is centered around our golden boy, the chosen one, Ash Williams. Ashy Slashy has been the main character, the bumbling idiot hero we all know and love. He went from being a goody little two-shoes, scared shitless, to a badass that, although is questionable at times,
Is that lavender?
does try to see the best in humanity and save it even when society would reject him. Although the show did end on a cliffhanger and a whimper, it did leave many wondering what was next, especially with the new lore on the Dark Ones that the show would create. With Evil Dead Rise, it adds new elements and ideas to the already expanding story many want answered. This installment also leaves us puzzling as well, thanks to clever Easter eggs that could be one-offs, but if taken seriously, could add either to a broken timeline, multiple timelines, or a multiverse theory. If fans pay close attention to a certain scene in the film, Ash's voice can be heard, and it is confirmed that is more than likely Ash Williams. This isn't just a standalone requel like Fede's film, as it also tries to expand or be part of the main continuity, but do its own spin on certain things. Originally, I did want to say in my take that this is probably a multiverse thing, but agreeing with my friends that the multiverse is pretty much just dead and done thanks to Marvel ruining almost any possible adaptation of a multiverse movie out there, I do want to say that this has to do at least with some Back to the Future type of timeline shenanigans. With Army of Darkness being the only time travel film we see Ash in, as well as the Ash vs. Evil Dead show messing with time, it is possible that the Necronomicons in the graveyard scene are more than meets the eye. With Cronin coming out of the woodworks stating his Harry Potter version of a Necronomicon being linked to that moment in the graveyard, it is more than possible and more than safe to suggest that the Necronomicons are not just linked to one another, but could possibly have their own separate stories and their own timelines and continuity of things. The Books of the Dead were never truly explored, even in the original timeline, since it's kind of a mess due to rights issues, but more so, there wasn't enough lore being explored until the 2013 movie tried a little bit. Then the series Ash vs. Evil Dead, they tried their best to expand on the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. Although the 3 books were a one and done, the fact that they are now more important than ever, this is very, very ballsy. Looking to the show for more evidence, I want to say that maybe the Dark Ones were brought in to fill as many holes as they could, as it made sense to the universe and characters we know, whereas Fede's and Cronin's come off different. Fede's Deadites were more terrifying and had this horrifying aura surrounding them everywhere they went, as they weren't like the Deadites we all know and love. Fede's take was supposed to be like the original movie Sam had envisioned, but it was much more gorier and much more horrifying than ever, more hellish, whereas Cronin is a mix of both. In Cronin's timeline, it is stated that there were 3 priests who came into contact with the Necronomicon and wanted to study it, but this pissed off the monastery, and more for good reason. There was and still is an ancient evil in those passages that the living should not contact. What these 3 priests would come to find out would be the other 2 books were still out there. But not much else was said. They document anything and everything they can about this ancient evil, but just like Professor Nobi and the group in Fede's film, shit happens. My main theory is that whenever Ash was sent back in time to prevent the evil from rising in medieval times, 1300 AD, maybe him time jumping either messed with the timelines, causing a butterfly effect, or the other 2 books were sent into different times when Ash was messing with everything, as this could explain Mia and Beth having to fend off for themselves and why we possibly don't see Ash in these installments. This could also explain how a simple one-off such as Henrietta's Pizza is a thing and why Nobi isn't the one documenting the events for this film as well as the one in Fede's. And again, you don't have to agree with me, this is just my take on what they're going to be going for with this new continuity going forward. Each Book of the Dead could possibly have its own army of the dead waiting to be unleashed to cause hell on earth, and maybe each film is set during or around the time Ash is either time jumping or retired, especially with the sinkhole earthquakes happening in Ash vs. Evil Dead, and this could probably explain how the Necronomicon wasn't Earth, aside from it just being a normal earthquake in Cronin's film. But this might be just me grasping at straws trying to figure out what exactly is going on. While we may not know what truly is the end game, the goal that the writers and Cronin want for the Evil Dead franchise, what I do know is that we as fans are going to want more. With the Deadites and the lore being completely all over the place, I would want Cronin, Raimi, Fede to try to come up with the way to link the timelines together, try to bring the characters they brought to the table together to fight off the Evil Dead in some Avengers-esque type with some Portals type of shenanigans, if you will. I think it'd be fun. It could be a little too much, but I'd want them to try to build this Evil Dead universe together, come up with ideas to make the stories combine and feed off one another in a positive way. That way, everything makes total sense. Now, I'm not trying to trash on the franchise. I love the Evil Dead franchise. I love how all over the place everything is, but it is kind of messy. I also do want to point out that anything could go wrong depending in the franchise. We've seen what happened with the Halloween franchise ever since the 2018 film. I don't want to jinx and say that the next sequels in this franchise for Evil Dead are going to be bad, but I'm hoping that Cronin and whoever else is involved with the franchise going forward, I know that Raimi and Bruce Campbell and I believe Rob Tapert are going to be producers. I'm hoping that they try to come together and try to find a way to bring back the characters we know and love. I want each Book of the Dead to be explored. It doesn't have to be fully explored or talked to death. I'd at least want to know more about the Books of the Dead, why they're important, why each one is different. I'd also love to see if we could either get characters like Kelly Pablo and Brandy if we can't get Bruce to come back as Ash, or Mia being brought back to the franchise and having some Spider-Man No Way Home meets Evil Dead film where we get legacy characters to help out the new blood fend off the Deadites. But yeah, I'm really just hoping for the best in the next Evil Dead installment. I'm hoping that we get more fully fleshed out characters, at least some explanation into the Books of the Dead, having more fleshed out characters, seeing more of their hero's journey, and not just being one-offs and dones. I don't want to see any new characters unless they're going to be important to the franchise, and by that, I don't want to just go from an Evil Dead movie where we just see Beth and Cassie to now new characters that we have to know more about. I'd want to stick with what we have and build up to them, but anything can happen, and I'm hoping it goes for the best. As always, guys, I've been your friendly neighborhood S-Smart employee, and remember, shop smart, shop S-Smart, and give this video a goddamn like, and subscribe if you already haven't. You know how much time I've had to put through all these goddamn videos trying to beat the damn script, trying to get the damn crunch time against these Deadites. You're gonna kill me, my god! Please, for the love of God, get—
Michael, don't leave me here.
Ooh. Wake up, that guy, Frankie.
Agárrame huevos, compa. I ain't no fruity guy.
Wake up, Frankie. No. Gotta find that Necronomicon, Frankie. You gotta find it. That guy, Frankie. Trademark. You gotta patent that name before somebody gets it. Who knows? Maybe I'll trademark that name. I kind of like that. Imagine it. That Aviator Man. Oh, yeah. Kind of roll off the tongue. No. Wake up, Frankie. You gotta find that book, man. Ooh. Where the travelers?
I've traveled across so many realities, battling so many versions of yourself.
Frankie, I'm warning you right now. Some things are coming for you, Frankie. You gotta find this Book of the Dead before they do, Frankie, and give it to me. Because I'm telling you, man, this shit is fucking serious, bro. A little more serious than my fucking AIDS. I'll tell you that much. Now, quickly, wake up! Hell no. Oh, wake the fuck up! Wake the fuck up! Wake the fuck up! What the fuck up? Damn!
Wait. Aren't you?
I don't know me, bro. I'm a ghost!
I must be dreaming or some shit.